Welcome to Real Community Talks, a video and audio podcast dedicated to making real conversations with community influencers available to everyone. I'm your host, Matt DeSilva, and I meet with some of the dopest community influencers across the greater Toronto area who, maybe by the world standards, might be micro-level influencers, but I know are doing macro-level things. Stay tuned each Tuesday night as we dive into each guest's life, talk process, and get to hear their unique story which molded them into the person they are today. The stories you hear are not necessarily formulas for success, but examples of individuals who are making their dreams possible despite obstacles. I firmly believe that everyone has a unique story that could potentially change someone's entire perspective on their circumstance. I hope you enjoy the show. Welcome to Real Community Talks, where real conversations with community influencers are made available to everyone. I'm your host, Matt DeSilva, and on today's episode, we have one of Brampton's top 40 under 40 award recipients, Manvir Bhangu, on the episode. Manvir, thank you for being on the show. Wait, before I say it, did I pronounce your last name right?
Yeah. Okay. Well, sure.
No, do it right.
It's Manvir Bhangu.
Manvir Bhangu. Oh, wow. I butchered that.
Okay,
never mind. So for those two waste people who don't know who Manvir is, and I don't know why you wouldn't know her, she is the founder. This is going to be a long one. She's the founder and executive director of the nonprofit organization Laadliyan, Celebrating Daughters, in which, as I mentioned, she was awarded Brampton's top 40 under 40 by the Brampton Board of Trade.
Yes.
She's a Newcomer Youth Settlement Worker for Malton Neighbourhood Services. She is a research assistant / note taker at St. Michael's Hospital for a study on the topic of son preference in the Indo-Canadian immigrant community. Was a special projects research intern at United Way of Peel region in 2017. Completed her undergrad at Wilfred Laurier with a double major in human rights and human diversity and criminology, and also completed her master's at McMaster U in Globalization and the Human Condition. She was a TA at McMaster, a community champion and translator for the Regional Diversity Roundtable in Peel, a mentor for the Young Leaders Council at United Way, was the president of Amnesty International Laurier Chapter during her undergrad, was the president of the Human Rights Student Association at Laurier in her final year, and among many other things, she's also a women's rights activist, a part-time tutor through Tutor Doctor, and a teacher. Did I forget anything?
No, that's it.
I think this is probably one of the longest bio openings I've ever done, but that's a good thing though. So with that, why don't we segue into what's your origin story? So who is Manvir Bhangu and where are you from?
I am, a girl who was born in Toronto, grew up in Brampton, lived a little bit of my life in India when I was younger, moved there for about 5 years with my whole family, and just kind of, grew up with this sense of, where do I belong? Am I Indian? Am I Canadian? Am I mixed?
Wow.
What's culture? What's right? What's wrong?
Yeah.
And I think now I'm a little bit more comfortable with who I am. I'm a little bit more settled in who I want to be. But it's been an interesting journey up till here, at least for the first 26 years of my life. It's been
Awesome. So I actually thought that was interesting because I've actually watched another podcast. That was talking about the I can't remember her name, but she was, I think, FouseyTube. FouseyTube's former manager, that it's actually something common for people who are from India, is if they're born here, they'll take them back for a few years, kind of get introduced into the culture, learn the language, and then bring them back. Was that kind of the situation with you, or?
No.
Okay.
We went back. My dad actually had a brother in India who was quite sick, so he needed to take care of him for a little bit.
Okay.
So everybody ended up moving back. But it was nice because I think that had a really big impact on the work that I do today. Because of those 5 years, I'm able to speak, read and write in Punjabi. I'm able to speak Hindi. So I think that's definitely shaped, those 5 years definitely shaped who I am today.
Awesome. So I did mention that you have your own nonprofit and you're the executive director for Laadliyan. I had to call her to see how to pronounce that because I didn't want to butcher it. But that's what happens when you live in Malton. You kind of just once you start doing the head nod, you're officially brown.
Exactly.
But so why don't you kind of talk a bit about Laadliyan and what's the purpose and who it serves?
So Laadliyan is something that I kind of started, at the age of 21. I didn't know what it was supposed to be. I just knew what I wanted to do with it. And the purpose was to celebrate daughters. And again, at the age of 21, I was doing my undergrad and I had no idea what that looked like, what the next 5 years, next 10 years would look like. But it just started off as a Facebook page where, we would post things and people would follow us. And then I had this fundraiser. And from that fundraiser, we raised some funds to send to an orphanage in India for abandoned daughters.
Wow.
And from there on, I think I carved my mission, my vision, and my values a little bit more. And I think just this year is when I'm more certain about what Laadliyan is. So for me, Laadliyan is a space for South Asian girls and women to feel safe. It's a place where they can come access resources, where they can feel supported, and where they can share their stories. Because the one thing that I noticed growing up was a lot of my friends, a lot of my cousins, we all had a lot of similar experiences. Being Punjabi girls or being Indian girls growing up in Canada, with some certain restrictions because of culture.
Yeah.
So that's just what I'm trying to do with Laadliyan. I think a lot of the times, the South Asian culture, particularly the Punjabi culture, does demean women and girls in ways they don't even realize. But I think my aim is to kind of just bring light on that and point it out, because no one's doing it. So.
I know. I thought that was so cool, because the funny thing is, like I said, growing up in Malton, I'm not Punjabi, but I knew that I could already see that I had friends when I'd go over to the houses, or even when I'm going in the car, they'd make the sister sit in the back if she's already in the front seat, and I'm like, or all that kind of stuff. I'm like, I didn't get that, and little nuances like that, but I didn't need to be versed in the culture or grew up in it. I just noticed that. Exactly. So I think, I don't really know that in terms of who else is out there, but when I seen that you were doing that, I'm like, wow, I don't know anyone that's doing something like that, especially without trying to doing that. That you're gonna get some backlash, and you kind of talked about that before. So how is with your nonprofit, how did you fight against the noise like that?
I think I love telling this story, because when I first started out and I would face backlash, which was ironically from women.
Wow.
I would get really mad, and I would want to fight, and I would want to yell and just argue with the person. And then I would come home and I would tell my parents, this happened. I can't believe our people, they're like this and that. And then my dad's like, listen, no one's going to listen to you and then change their opinion overnight, right? He's like, your job is not to change their opinion. Your job is to show them, the other way. That nowadays, back then, maybe, people had their reasons for differentiating between boys and girls. But nowadays, especially in a country like Canada, you don't really need those kind of differences. They don't have a place in our society. Yeah. So he's like, as long as you get your message across, what they decide to do with it is their decision. Facts. Wow. So from that day on, I kind of just, I do my job and I leave it there. I'm not saying I've changed 100 lives, but maybe I've touched 2 lives. And to me, that's better than not doing anything about it at all, because it is really easy to just take a seat and not worry about it. Yeah. And it can be intimidating, because in my culture, the problem is if you talk back or if you argue, you're disrespectful. So, and especially as a female, it comes off like, what did your parents teach you? Do you not know how to talk to your elders?
Yeah, even as a young person.
Yeah, all of those things. So, so we've heard it all, but I think my approach has definitely changed. I've matured in that sense, and how I respond to people in the community. So.
Wow. I think that's awesome. I think you're doing a great thing, and I think that I love what you said your dad says. It's so true. I've heard that so many people tell me that. It's you can't you can control what you say, you can't control how they react. Exactly. Right? And what they do with that and make use of that, right? You can lead people to water, but they have to choose to drink it, right? So obviously, it was something you kind of interested that you mentioned. You said that you formed your organization kind of out of the fundraiser that you did. So did you always have this idea that you wanted to start a nonprofit, or was it something that was more spontaneous, hey, this is something big?
I actually didn't incorporate the nonprofit until much later. Okay. So I didn't know what I wanted to do with it. I knew I had an idea. I knew I wanted to do this. I didn't know that having a nonprofit organization was an option. Yeah. That just kind of came out of it. I didn't know the paperwork that was involved. I didn't know the legal stuff. Until now, I don't know any of that. Yeah. It's just kind of happening. But I definitely knew I wanted to raise my voice, and that could look like, whatever that was meant to look like. So I remember ever since I was younger, these topics always intrigued me, and I was always the one in the room who would say something. And I think for others it kind of became a joke. Oh, you're a man hater, or wow. When there's something on the TV, let's say there's an ad playing for Because I'm a Girl, the organization. Oh, wow, you should go work for them. Like stuff like that. So
Wow.
I was that girl. I was the girl who always had something to say about, about gender inequality because that's such a bad thing.
Yeah.
So that was the drive behind it. Again, I didn't know what that would look like, how I would get there. But I think over the last, 4 or 5 years, it's just kind of played itself out.
The crazy thing about that is even if people believe like or see that gender inequality is happening, it's almost like because it's so entrenched in society, it becomes a status quo. So it's almost like people are uncomfortable, like, yeah, I don't like to see that it's happening, but no, don't touch it or don't do anything about it. Like,
for sure.
It's like you're changing the fabric of reality. But it's like, and the thing is, I'm not saying that everyone's this way, but there's a certain gut feeling when you see something and you're just like, that makes me uncomfortable. But it takes someone who's bold like you and who is fearless to actually go and say that message, because the thing is, you're always going to get hate, you're always going to get backlash. Exactly. But your message and the impact is going to have is more powerful than that backlash. Right?
No, I 100% agree.
So just quickly before we kind of go on into like the topic of sun preference and like bicultural identity and all that kind of stuff, you have your own nonprofit. So like, what would you give? What advice would you give to young people? Because I know me and you talked about this before, how a lot of agencies are getting grants when they're starting nonprofits. And like, for instance, like there's the YOF grant. There's like a lot of youth-based grants, but they're so nervous or they think that it's not going to happen. So what advice would you give someone wanting to kind of endeavor into the nonprofit sector?
I would say just do it. I would say connect with the right people. And I can tell you there's a lot of us out there who can benefit from each other's support or advice. I actually didn't get my first grant till last year.
Oh, wow.
And I didn't even know what grants were because I had nobody around me to tell me that.
So you were all out of pocket before that?
All out of pocket.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's dedication.
So, and the other day we were actually doing our finances and we took out all our receipts and there's like a pile of this big receipts, and one of my summer students was telling me, oh, what are these for? And I was like, that's my out of pocket.
Wow.
And I mean, I don't mind because it's my passion, right? But there's definitely funding out there, and I think you need to know the right people who can guide you to that funding. There's newsletters you can join. Again, you just need to know. And a lot of these things aren't advertised a lot of the time. So I would say just do it and reach out. I mean, you're a good source to reach out to. I'm a good source to reach out to. And I really think that a lot of young people can benefit from maybe like a network that we can create ourselves, for these things, for help with starting your own nonprofit. Even if you don't want to incorporate it, just kind of maybe even, an idea that you want to throw an event or anything that has to do with community building or social justice. Just go ahead. And I think you'll find your way somehow. It might take some time, but you'll find your way. Yeah.
And the thing is with that, when you're talking about your out of pocket, there was that period and there was some element where you had to take a risk that even if it failed, you still set in your mind that you were going to do it, right?
Yeah. Like there were times when my mom's like, you're always running around. Is there any point to this? And, you're not getting paid for this. It's out of your pocket. You're wasting your gas and you're driving around all day. And I said, just wait. And now it makes sense. I mean, I'm still not getting paid for my role. I just have program funding now, but even then I'm still driven because I know that it's running on its own.
And that's exactly me too. It's like I never came into this thing to start a podcast because I wanted to get paid, but because I knew that the message was powerful. And I may never get paid, but the funny thing is the networks it's opened up, the people who I've met. Like I feel like obviously we know each other and some of the guests I know, but every time I have a conversation with someone, it's not like I'm expecting something in return, but people have been like, let me know if you need more guests, or you know what, I'll take your business for this, for your photography or whatever. It's because people have trusted me and they've been a part of this journey. So sometimes the reward isn't always monetary, right?
Exactly. So and I truly believe, I think a lot of us younger people who are trying to do these things are very helpful. I think I mean, I did face some I don't want to maybe resistance, you can call it, from other agencies, from older agencies that are more established. And maybe that was my own shortcoming because I didn't know what I wanted to do with it or what my vision was. But I think the young people around me are the ones who helped me establish what I want to do with it.
So I'm so glad that I have this platform, because the premise of this whole show is having real conversations. So this is your opportunity to talk about, even you don't have to worry about the backlash or whatever, but why don't you talk about sun preference and in the Indo-Canadian community, and we can kind of maybe segue into like bicultural identities of women too.
So, sun preference is something that I think if you talk to any South Asian female, maybe even males, you can ask them what that looks like, and someone can give you an example. It can look like, I have to be the one serving the food while my brother eats the food. It can look like you said, because I'm sitting in the front, but my brother's friend is going to come into the car, I have to jump to the back.
Yeah.
It can be, my brother can stay out late. I have to come at this time for no absolute
That's like
reason.
the typical one I knew when I was a kid.
My mom needs the contact information for the people I'm going out with, well, not for my brother.
Wow.
My brother can just walk out. I have to ask permission days in advance. And I mean, it's so small. It's such a tiny thing, but it's so deeply ingrained into our community. Son preference. The reason that I'm addicted to this topic is because I grew up in a family where I have an older brother, and I have a younger sister. So being one of the two sisters in a family where my brother was born before us, you can see the way people treat my brother. And not my parents, it's the people around us.
Yeah.
So
Wow.
everybody, for every aunt and uncle, he's this precious gem, and he's smart kid, smart man, I should say now. He's went to McMaster, played football at McMaster, won the championship. Now works at Tim Hortons head office, has his MBA.
Wow.
He's the boy. Like,
Wow.
he's the one you should be like.
Yeah.
And that's all they ever talk about. And, my parents have never, ever done that to the three of us. They've been equally, respectful and equally engaging with the three of us. But you can see when someone comes over. I remember this funny moment. My dad had posted a picture on Facebook on Father's Day. Or I had posted a picture on Facebook on Father's Day. And I'm in that picture with my dad. It's my face and my dad's face.
Yeah.
And you can tell it's a female, it's his daughter.
Yeah.
And someone commented, "Oh, God bless your son."
What?
I'm in the picture.
What?
Right? And they said, "God bless your son."
And your brother's not even in the picture.
He's nowhere to be seen.
What?
and that's, that's the kind of community that I grew up in. And
Wow.
that's the kind of people that are surrounded, that surround me. And I'm just like, I don't know what do you say? I just let it be. And I was like, is my brother in there? Like, is there any, is his finger in there or something? And absolutely, he wasn't even home when we took the picture. And that's the kind of, that's son preference. Like, people just have this association of the son with the family name or with the father or the lineage or whatever that is. And so I had the privilege of being taken on as a research assistant and note taker for St. Michael Hospital. They were doing a research study on son preference, and we did some focus groups with mothers and some with grandmothers and some with fathers, and the kind of stuff that we heard. I mean, it's not new to me because you grow up in this, but it's still like it blows my mind because people are like. And the other thing is, I don't have grandparents, so I didn't grow up with paternal or maternal grandparents.
Wow.
So I never. I mean, I'm sure they would have never. From what I hear, they would have never done anything like that. But I mean, I'm not used to older women putting down younger women, and that's what That's what you hear. That's what you see. Grandmothers are putting down their granddaughters or their daughters-in-law or whatever the case may be. And I'm just like, you were once that person. And I think one comment that stuck with me, which I will probably never forget, is one grandmother had said, my daughter-in-law gave birth to 3 stones. Three daughters. Stones that are never going to do anything. Yeah.
Wow. Okay, I had to think about that one for a second.
Yeah,
wow.
That's it. That's it's over. Stones.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
And I remember when I was in high school, I've seen videos where they'd actually try to murder the daughters and stuff like that. That's crazy. And even in Canada, they'd take them back to India and get it done in India. That's crazy.
Yeah.
Wow.
So the research study that I actually, just a paper I helped co-author, talked about second generation South Asian Canadian women taking part in son preference. And there's a clear lack of missing female children from that community, and someone's got to ask the hard question: what happened? Where did that happen? How did that happen?
So with the data that you've received, and with your knowledge, obviously through your undergrad and your master's, and obviously now that you have your nonprofit, how do we solve this issue? What's the main areas that we got to tackle?
There's honestly not just one answer that I can give you. I think I strongly believe that the father needs to stand up. I'm a big believer in if the father can stand up and say, "This is my daughter," back off. I don't think anybody can how dare would anybody say anything? It's
Yeah.
because we let people get away with it. Small comments. I remember there was a baby girl born. Someone I know had a baby girl 2 years ago. And the first comment that was made was, okay, one's okay, but the next one should be a boy.
Wow.
And everybody's in the room, and and I'm just like, people are letting this go. If we can tackle comments like that on the spot, that person would think twice before saying that something like that again.
Yeah.
And the second comment that was made was, oh, at least she's fair. Like, at least her skin tone is fair.
Wow.
It's nothing about her. God knows what she's gonna become. God knows what she's gonna solve or do or create. Who knows, right?
Yeah.
But it's just like you're just belittling her to just her looks or the fact that she's a female.
Yeah.
It's
so crazy because it's all under the guise of culture, and that the thing is, with numbers there's power, right?
Yeah.
So obviously if an entire, like, a majority of a nation is like that, then it's hard to fight it, and it's so ingrained. I mean, I also put one side of the coin to this, and you can disagree with me, it's okay, because I'm not as versed in this topic, but I mean for instance, I know some people who will make a joke and it'll just be like really off colored, and it doesn't mean that they're wrong. They are wrong, but some of them, like, that's the way they grew up with, right? And it's so ingrained and it's so entrenched that it's hard to reverse that. But obviously an open mind can change a lot of things, right? You can like, for instance, one of the, I always say in these episodes is, university really opened up my mind. Like, there's some posts that I made on Facebook years ago that I'm like, I had to delete, because you know what, like, I was wrong, but now I'm like, I would never think like that, because I'm so much more, I mean, for lack of better terms, woke now, because I'm like, I don't think that way, right? And growing up around certain, like, I'm half Guyanese and half Portuguese. Those are two totally different cultures, so you got a little bit of both in terms of, there's some racism, there's some cultural bias and all that kind of stuff. So I mean, I don't blame people like that, but it's crazy. I mean, in my opinion, it's like, if you're taking that 50-50 chance whether you're gonna have a boy or a girl, just don't have kids at all, man.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, whose fault is that but you and your passion? No offense, but
no, that's the thing. And I'm like, is it really that bad to just wish for a healthy child?
Yeah,
right. And there are people who don't have babies at all, and they would do anything for any boy or girl. It doesn't matter. But again, I just think people are letting it happen, which is why it continues to happen. So as long as people can learn to stand up, and I think our religious institutions can do a little bit more.
Yeah. And like I said, I continue to support you on this topic, because I actually support an organization called Dalit Freedom Network, where, like, the Dalits, I think, are one of the lowest caste in India, and the lowest, I actually sponsored this girl who's like, the money goes towards, like, their education, and it's some schools that are built up, but, like, they can't even get jobs because of their caste. They can't, like, these girls are brought to the temple to be prostitutes from young. So I'm like, I know how pervasive this issue is, and, like, I commend you so much for this. Because like, when I seen that video, like, I'm not saying, like, I'm not just, like, obviously I didn't just watch the video, I'm like, here's my money. Obviously I did my research to make sure the organization, like, I think like 85% goes towards the kids, and then, but I'm just like, when I seen that, it broke my heart, because I'm like, a kid, whether you're in India or whether you're in Canada, France, wherever, they're just a kid. Like, they don't choose to come into this world. They're so innocent minded, and some of them are so, like, they're so scarred from a very young age, and in those early development years. So it's crazy.
I know the kind of orphanages that exist in India, in Punjab especially. It's it's sickening. The one that I've donated to twice actually, has over 60 unwanted daughters. It's crazy. People just left at the front door. Yeah. So
I mean, I could barely see, like we talked about my dog being adopted. I could barely see a dog, let alone a person. Right? It's crazy. I know. So you're also a Newcomer Youth Settlement Worker. So why don't you talk about what you do in that role?
So I'm assisting newcomers who are in the category of youth, who are new to Canada, the Malton area, with whatever they need assistance with. So school, finding a job, just relationship advice. I do all sorts of things. Resume writing, just listening to them talk about their friends or whatever that is. So kind of like a mentor, I would say. I really enjoy that, which is why, I'm still here. I'm still doing it. I started last year in February, and I thoroughly enjoy my 9 to 5. Yeah. Which is really hard, I think, for a lot of people to say, but I love it.
Wow. Yeah. And the thing I've noticed, even as a youth worker myself, is your job description may say one thing, but geez, I swear, like, we're doing like 5-6 different roles, right? Yeah. So you're from Brampton, now working in Malton. What can you say you've learned about? I'm sure you've probably been to Malton before you worked here.
I have a funny story. I actually was terrified of Malton.
Really?
Yeah, because I didn't know what it was.
Yeah.
I have a really good friend named Peter, and I met him in my master's.
Yeah.
And when we met in class, I was like, "Where are you from?" He's like, "Malton." I was like, "Oh, okay, whatever." Right. And then one day I'm like, oh, okay, let me drop you home because I live in Brampton, you live in Malton. And that was my first like entry into Malton, outside of the Nagar Kirtan, the Khalsa Day parade that happens and goes through. That's the only time I had been to Malton. And I dropped him off, and then, that's how I became familiar with the area. And then 6 months later, I applied for the job and I got the job in Malton. And I was texting, I was like, oh, funny story. Guess where I'm working? I'm your neighbor now. And he found it hilarious. It was just something that I wasn't used to.
Yeah.
It's very different from where I grew up. Mm-hmm. But, oh, man, I love Malton. I can't tell you how much it's changed my opinion. I can't tell you how much community we see. I mean, you see it every day, too. True. I wish Brampton had a community hub like this one. Yeah. My kids are just able to come over after school. Just like that. I don't know any community center that exists within such a safe distance for kids to just kind of do that, in Brampton, or where there's such a large youth population willingly, coming over. Yeah. Whether that's your clubs or what we do at M&S. I'm thoroughly enjoying what I'm doing. 9 to 5.
I like what you said there because I took note of that because like I see the same thing. It's even though we're not their parents, we're like, my kids, and it's like, it's almost like you're in a parental role, but like you're kind of like that middle ground where like I've obviously had to, like listen to them complain about their parents, but then also find a balance to be like, well, did you think about it this way? Maybe they do love you. It's just they're showing it in a different way, right?
For sure.
It's so funny how we kind of like,
And my mom's always like, what do you mean you're kids? You're kids. You don't have kids. I'm like, they're my kids.
Yeah. So what? Before we go on to the next question, why don't you kind of talk about some high moments of your role? I know you were talking about that grade 8 grad you got invited to.
I had such a sweet moment happen 2 weeks ago. One of my Syrian refugees, she's graduating from grade 8, and she's like, I really want you to be in my graduation. And I was like, I can't come because you only get 2 tickets per person. She's like, please. And I was like, okay, why don't you go talk to your principal? So she went out of her way. She wrote her principal a letter saying it's really important that Manvir attends my graduation because she's been an integral part in my journey, grade 7, grade 8. And I got the ticket. So I got to go to the graduation, and I felt like a proud parent. I sat there. 8 of my youth were actually graduating that day, but she had gone out of her way to go get me the ticket. So it was really nice. I took pictures for them, and she was so happy that I came. And it was just like watching your little sister graduate, or like your own child graduate. And I'm so glad that, she found me worthy of that, that she went out of her way to talk to her parents, talk to her principal, and have me there. And I remember when I was telling my manager, this is what she wants me to do. He's like, these are the kind of things you need to do. Wow. You should be there and put in your reports that this is the kind of impact we're making. Because I think impact is so important. Like to me, that's my reward. Yeah. I'm not too, fond of what I'm getting paid or the, it's not even, none of those things matter when that happens. Yeah. So for me, that was, such a warm moment. And even on a daily basis when one of our families, actually the father just got his trucking license, and he came over. He just walked in with sweets, and they feel comfortable enough doing those things. So I love where I work. I love what I do. Yeah. I love the people I interact with, and awesome. And I'm just so fortunate that they feel comfortable to come to me and talk to me. So, wow. Yeah.
I love how that's so full circle because Laadliyan celebrates daughters, and then it's like that's coming back with that. Yeah. Actually, I was gonna ask you something first, but you kind of talked about impact, and you said in your prelim that impact keeps you going. Yeah. And I definitely agree with that for me as well. But one thing I struggle with from time to time is how do I measure or define impact? Because one person, especially working for corporations or even working for anywhere, like numbers are everything. Exactly. But for me, I kind of take this kind of stance where if I had one kid where they were spoken into and their lives was changed, it's better than a program that has 40 kids with, who are
not paying attention.
Exactly. Yeah. So how do you define impact for you?
I mean, obviously for report reasons, you need the numbers, like you said, and we come across that every 3 months when we have to do our reporting. Yeah. But I think personally for me, when I have this consistent client who's coming back to me, on a weekly basis or every other day to kind of report back or to just kind of fill me in on like this happened and then this happened and this is what I'm doing for the summer, or I got a job, that's impact. I really like putting up things in the office that remind me of who I work with. So when my youth make me art, I have a lot of it up in my office.
Wow.
But it may not be, like a beautiful piece of art, but to me, it's the most stunning, stunning picture that's been made, and it was made for me. So to me, those kind of moments are impactful. That's what I will never forget those. I will never forget those. And I remember one day I was talking to my coworker Rupi, and we were saying, I wonder what's going to happen with these kids when they're like 20 and we no longer work here.
It's
like,
true.
Will they find us on Facebook and like want to meet up for a coffee? And, or like, will they be different? Will they be better? Will they be, God knows where they're going to go and what they're going to do. But I just hope that somewhere in their journey, they remember the role that I've played.
Yeah. That's crazy. Yeah. I think we always we're always wondering that, like, and the thing is, sometimes I think what we need to learn as youth workers too, and I don't know about you, but it's like sometimes like we put everything on us. Like if we don't do this, like we want to make sure that like if we fail them, it's all our fault. But I guess it's kind of goes full circle back to what your dad says. Like you can help them, you can give them advice, but you hope that it resonates with them and they kind of bring it up when they need it, right?
For sure.
So you're a full-time youth worker. You run your own nonprofit. You tutor part-time on top of other voluntary things, family commitments, friends, all that kind of stuff. How are you able to balance all of these things?
It's because I want to. I think that's the bottom line. For me, there is no going home after 5. I'm never home at 5:30. I get home at 8:30, 9, 9:30, 10, depends on the day. For me, it's just keep going and doing what you need to do. What needs to get done needs to get done. And I think you and I can relate on that. Because I see the way you're doing this and you're doing your full-time job and you're finishing up your master's. I think it's just as long as it's what you want to do and you got to do what you got to do. And I wouldn't trade it for anything. I know there are days when I'm fed up. There's days when I'm overwhelmed. Like yesterday I had such a, I had a moment where I just cried because I'm like, I never get to relax. But I think that moment was unfair because I don't let myself relax. And if I relax, I wouldn't know what to do. Yeah. Because I like to keep myself, on the go, and I'm eating in my car and I'm just eating whatever I can find. Yeah. There's no like, there's no, to me, that's my rhythm. To me, it works. But I know what I'm giving up. I'm giving up a lot of time with my parents. I'm giving up a lot of time, just at home. A lot of self-care has definitely been given up, which catches up with me from time to time. But I think the passion honestly just drives me. Like I've got this office and I've got that office and I've got tutoring. There's no weekends off. It's just got to keep going.
And that's the thing too, like for me, sometimes even when I come home, it's almost like I've been in overdrive mode all day. Yeah. And that's why I couldn't get into a proper sleeping pattern, because it's like literally my mind's like, okay, I got to do this. Then I got to send that email tomorrow. Then I got to like, that's why writing down things help. Putting it in my calendar helps. Like, I think one of the best things for me was my Outlook calendar, because I put my work and my personal on the same one. So I can see like, even though I know that after work is not necessarily like relevant to my work calendar, I still put it there, because then I know mentally, like, it's even though you may prepare physically, sometimes you have to prepare mentally, because I know if I'm doing an 11 to 7, then I know I got to come do a podcast. I got to make sure that like for instance, today I scheduled my shift till 5 because I knew I needed an hour to come home, set up the stuff, freshen up so that I could be ready to go to your episode, right? So I think it's like adding in that time, and it's so funny because it's like, even though it's your personal time, you actually have to, like, for me, I actually have to schedule in that, because I'm like, if I don't, then I'm gonna just like literally go into like a loop, like watching like one Facebook video that spirals into something, and then I'm like, that wasn't really self-care, that was just like
that's also work related
exactly
somehow.
Right.
It's so funny because I remember when we were younger and I would like look at older people and like, oh my god, people are so busy, I don't ever want to be like them, and I find myself in the same boat. And like, you don't see your friends as much as you'd like to see them. Everybody's working, and I think I really got to give it up to those people who are doing more than just their 9 to 5, which is a lot of us. A lot of us are, doing more than just that one job. Yeah. Well, I watched a video, actually, speaking of Facebook, yesterday, that like, and I get it. I'm not saying that all the millennial complaints are not valid or valid, but like, I seen this video that it's like to buy a house is like way more expensive now. Cost of living is way more expensive. It's like we almost have to, like back then, 50s, 60s, you can get one job, retire in it. You'd be the plant manager, boom, make a lot of money. Like,
items were really cheap. That's why you've seen a spike in spending over the
Yeah.
years. But then it's like then we inherited that mentality with less money, less time, all that kind of stuff,
Yeah,
right? So
sure.
it's hard, right? So something that most people don't know about you is that you struggle with the fear of failure, especially because you mentioned society almost teaches us to not fail at any cost,
Yeah.
right? So you take a different stance on failure. So why don't you talk about the role that failure has played in your life?
I wish someone told me much, much earlier that it's okay to fail. I wish failure was acceptable. I wish failure was encouraged. I don't think you can know who you are until you failed.
Wow.
I don't think you know who your friends are until you failed.
It's true.
I don't think I just don't think you know your limits until you failed. And failure can look like anything. It's different for everybody. I'm so glad that there was a teaching moment in my life where I became who I am because of that. And I mean, coming from the culture that I come from and being a female, you're expected to be perfect. And I've played that role for a lot of years. I think just recently I've stopped like giving a shit. I don't know if I'm allowed to say
That's
that.
okay. That's cool.
Right. And it's just, as this older sister for a lot of younger girls too, as this older cousin, there was this emphasis on be like her, be like her, be like her. She has long hair, so she's a good girl. What? Right? It's I like my long hair.
Wow.
She went to university. Do that. It's just little things, and I don't know where in my life I became that person. I mean, I'm glad I'm a role model, but I think it was for the wrong reasons. It was literally for the wrong reasons, and then the minute that you don't look that part, or the minute that you want to deviate from that role, and you fail at life for whatever reason, oh my God, people don't let you live it down.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
just, how dare you? You weren't supposed to do that.
Yeah.
You shouldn't have done that. You should have known better. You didn't try hard enough.
Yeah.
Try again. And I just wish people let people fail or figure it out on their own time.
Yeah.
Because what I've noticed is people have this timeline in their head of, after you graduate from grade 12, 4 years this, 3 years this, whatever, and then boom, you got your job, and
Yeah.
that's it. That's your
Yeah.
life. That's not necessarily growth, right? And I think so much of your experience comes from doing things that are outside of your comfort zone, meeting people who are not someone you would usually interact with. And I mean, my beef with failure is I just wish people let me fail more. And
Yeah.
and that's something that I make sure, even with my younger sister or with my younger cousins, it's okay to mess up. It's okay to not know. It's okay
Yeah.
to take a break. It's okay to slow it down. Just because you don't know right now doesn't mean you failed. You'll figure out another way.
Yeah.
And there's just so much pressure, especially on girls, to be, these perfect beings and to know everything. Whereas I think a lot of people let boys get away with failure much
Yeah.
easier. It's okay to take a year off and figure it out. But for girls, in my opinion, it's so much more. There's so much more pressure.
Yeah, for sure. So one thing I always like to ask on this show, if any, what role has faith played in all of what we talked about today for you?
In terms of faith, so I come from a Sikh background. I don't come from a strictly religious family, but
Yeah.
I think the principles of Sikhism are very much rooted in my upbringing. My parents are very simple people. They've done their part in introducing us to the religion. But to me, the way my dad has taught us Sikhism is God is inside of you, right? You are your faith. The way you treat people is what your faith is. I think that is what I'm taking forward in Laadliyan as well. I'm really trying to bring attention to the fact that the Sikh religion teaches people equality.
Yeah.
It teaches people love.
Yeah.
It teaches people, compassion. So where did we go wrong?
Yeah.
What happened that we were able to go to the Gurdwara and were able to bow down in front of our holy book
Yeah.
and claim to be good Sikhs, but we don't know how to respect our mother, our sister, our daughter.
Yeah.
Why is it that we are so hell-bent on the son preference,
Yeah.
when we claim to be good Sikhs?
Yeah.
So I really have a problem with people who pick and choose what they want to believe, but they claim to be
Yeah.
fully,
Yeah.
Sikh or
Yeah.
whatever their religion is.
Yeah,
But I think I don't like people who play with, or who use it to manipulate others, or
Yeah.
I don't like that. So for me, it's just, live a simple life and live an honest life. And I'm not going to do something which I can't promise myself.
Yeah.
Or I'm not going to fake it just so I look the part.
100%.
I'm not going to say I go to the temple every day, because I don't. And
Yeah.
I actually, I can't.
Yeah.
So I'd be lying to myself. And I think people who are taking part in son preference, or who are, discriminating between boys and girls, are actually lying to themselves and their God.
Wow.
So that's your own, you got to really think
That's
about
huge.
that. You're going to get up in the morning at, whatever time you get up to pray, but then you're going to go about your day and you're going to swear and you're going to treat people with disrespect, and you're going to drink, and you're going to, do all the things you're not supposed to do. But then you somehow are a better person than me because you go to the temple.
It's true. And that's the thing, like with a lot of faiths, my faith included, with Christianity too, like a lot of people will wear it like a badge. A lot of people will, like, it's almost like something to meet, or like, oh, I go to church, or I go to the temple this many times, so I'm holy, or I'm righteous.
Yeah,
and
checklist.
It's like piety, right? And the funny thing though is just like you said, a lot of people like to pick and choose what they want, but it's like, nah, like if you actually look at some faiths who are like very like gender discriminant, did you read your holy book?
Exactly.
Because it didn't even say that, right? And that's what irks me about culture, is because like if you put your faith in this book, like Christians put it in the Bible, you were talking about your book that you pray to, why are you trying to interpret what it clearly and plainly says there, right?
Exactly.
It's a contradiction too. So
yeah, and the funny thing is, when you bring that up, no one's got an answer.
Yeah, it's true.
And that's what blows my mind every time, because there's no defense to that. You don't know how to defend that, but you're still gonna go about and be the better sick.
Yeah,
in whichever way.
One thing that I love that Gandhi says is, he's like, I'd be a Christian if it weren't for the Christians, and that's coming from a Christian, because I've experienced it the same thing in the church. Is a lot of people like in our faith, like if you look at like Jesus and stuff like that, like if he actually came back today or whatever, like I don't think a lot of churches would let him in, right? Yeah. So I mean, like he came for the lost and for the people who are just like disenfranchised in the society. So it's like, I don't know, like a lot of people think that they're following the faith, but they're so like totally backwards in their thinking. Yeah. Right? So,
and I mean, I appreciate young people for pointing it out. I think a lot of younger people are starting to question religion, whereas I know my parents' generation didn't question it; they just did as they were told. But I mean, people in my generation are definitely saying, "Hey, like, answer this. Why do we bow down? Why do we do this? Why do we do this?" But and the interesting thing is, a lot of people don't have answers to that, which is
it's true. Yeah. It's true. So last question before we go into rapid fire: if you could go back in time, what would you tell grade 9 Manvir just about to enter high school? If you could warn her, give her a piece of advice, you can go back in time, what would you say?
There's no need to be Miss Perfect. Even though you're being told by everybody you have to be, just live a little, enjoy your high school years, make mistakes. Don't be afraid of failure. Honestly, just, and there's no rush. There's no rush to check things off. You have your whole life ahead of you. And I wish someone told me that.
Yeah. I like that.
I just wish I enjoyed more.
Yeah, true. All right, so we reached that point in the episode where it's rapid fire. So first thing that comes to mind, all right? Ready? Pepsi or Coke?
Pepsi.
Advil or Tylenol?
Advil.
Spring or fall?
Spring.
Brampton or Saga?
Brampton.
Canon Free Space or Lab B?
Lab B.
Hey, shout out to Lab B. If you had a daughter, what name would you choose?
Vera.
Vera, I like that. Best thing about university?
Joining all the clubs.
Favorite place you've traveled, local or international?
Amsterdam.
Amsterdam, nice. Favorite book you read or are reading?
I just read Erotic Stories for Punjabi Widows.
What?
Yeah, hilarious. Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Favorite song right now that you're listening to?
Oh, that's a hard one. What am I listening to?
Kiki.
Yeah, that one.
In my feelings?
So I'm not a Drake person, but
it's just going viral.
Yeah. I'm always
let's hope this podcast goes viral too. Who's one person that everyone should go right now and follow on Instagram or check them out? Like, it could be an influencer, they could be like a micro influencer.
Matt Da Silva.
Hey, okay. Favorite, and I don't know if I'm saying this correctly because I don't really know the differentiations, but favorite Hindi movie of all time?
Oh, DDLJ.
DDLJ? Wait, you gotta explain that.
Dilwale Dulhaniya Le Jayenge.
Okay, I was never gonna guess that. I'm like, okay.
That's all right.
I'm like, I only know Kuch Kuch Hota Hai.
Oh, good.
Most influential person on your life? or persons?
My mom.
Awesome. Mom is a common answer. Moms. Shout out to moms out there. If you could go back to a single point of your life, like what day would that be? Like your whole life. What was a memorable day that you'd want to just revisit for one day?
One day. Prom.
Prom? Hey, yeah, that's true.
I don't know why, but maybe.
I'd actually want to go and change some of the actions I did. But still.
Yeah, I don't think I danced enough. So.
Oh, okay. Yeah. If there was a movie on your life, what would the title read?
Live a little.
Live a little. I like that. So follow up. So like obviously if they couldn't get you, what actor? It doesn't have to be your lookalike, but what actor would you want to play you?
I really like Gina Rodriguez.
Yeah.
From Jane the Virgin.
Yeah. If you could have coffee or whatever your choice of drink is with anyone from any point in history, dead or alive, who would it be?
I'd like to have a coffee with Barack Obama.
Me too. What a good guy.
And if Michelle joins us, that'd be great.
Yeah, that'd be a. I honestly, I just want to be like Barack. So like those weed smoking did not joking. But now weed's legal, so clout for that. If you could be any animal, what would you be?
I want to be a bird, any type of bird.
Why?
I want to fly.
I know. I want
to fly.
You ever had those dreams where like you were flying and then you wake up?
And then you just fall.
Yeah.
You always fall.
I know. Name a song that puts you in your feelings. And it can't be In My Feelings by Drake.
No, Do You by Neo.
Okay, old. I love Neo.
I love Neo.
Yeah. If you were stranded on an island, what two things would you want with you?
Food and shoes.
Food and shoes.
I love shoes and I love food.
But what if you were the only person there though?
I don't care.
Okay, you just got to rock the shoes.
Yeah,
okay.
I need shoes and I need food.
All right, so speaking of fashion, what style did you rock that you look back now and wish you never rocked?
Oh boy.
All the guys said 5X tall tees for them, but like think back to your young days.
I don't know. Maybe like capris. I don't know.
Yeah. Okay.
Those look silly now, but I think they were okay then.
Yeah. Favorite food of all time?
I love potatoes. So in any form, shape. Yeah, I don't.
It's interesting you say that because I think I was reading somewhere that like literally if you had only potatoes to eat, you can actually survive on them.
I would definitely survive. Wow, yeah. Okay. I love potatoes, so I'm not gonna.
Shout out to samosas.
Yeah.
What job would you be horrible at?
An accountant.
An accountant? Hate math? Team hate math right here. Where do you feel most out of place?
Nightclubs, parties.
True.
My vibe.
I thought you were gonna say like at brown events because like they're basically sun preference everywhere.
Those two. Yeah. But there's food, so I don't.
Yeah, that's true. There's samosas.
Yeah.
So when you die, what would you want your biggest legacy that you leave behind to be? You could be a little longer on this one.
Laadliyan. I definitely want that to live longer. I mean, I don't want it to exist, because I hope that one day this goes away. But I hope that mission continues until it needs to continue.
Wow, sorry. I just took that in. You're like, I hope this doesn't exist forever. Like, you'd be okay if your organization had to cease to exist because it was solved.
Because the issue was solved. Yeah.
Okay, that gave me chills. I can't lie. So lastly, what's the title of the current chapter of your life right now if it was a book? So your book is such and such. What's the title of the current chapter?
Keep going.
Keep going. I like that. Keep going. All right, so you survived rapid fire. Yay. So now it's guest corner, so you can plug anything you want, whether it's business, social media, personal. If you think that people should check out something, or any last thing you want to say to our listeners or our viewers. I
go check out Laadliyan's website. Go see what we do and see if there's any way you can support, or if there's any way you can get involved. We're just. I know it's a South Asian organization, but I think a lot of people can relate. And I want to request to all the males who are watching this, be our allies. Just open your eyes and call out what's wrong.
Yeah.
And whether you have a sister or not, we've all got moms, we've all got women in our lives. So just, become more woke. I don't know if I use that right. I don't use terminology like that.
That's cool. I like that.
Just be more aware and, just keep spreading love. There's really no reason to be, so masculine all the time.
It's true. I know, like that's what the funny thing is. So like, and you know what? I'm just gonna nip it in the bud, and I'm just gonna be real. A lot of guys who I hang out with, like they'll actually like, and I'm not trying to use this in a discriminatory way, just what culture says, they'll actually think I'm gay because like I cry or I have emotions, and I'm like, nah, I just grew up with like a mom and a sister who were just like super involved in my life, right? So that's the thing about, not that it's just women, but what I'm saying is I just grew up in a family that's so like supportive, where I could talk about that. So I'm just like, yo, like guys can cry. Like I go to the movies and I'm like, yo, I tear up, but it's like
we all have emotions.
Guys have to just like literally just stop following the stereotype. You got to be this big macho guy. Like I'm a big guy with a beard, but man, like there was this puppy movie, I think Pet Hotel or some crap like that, and I bawled when the dog like got caught. So
I mean, we're human, right? And it's inside of us. So I don't know where the hyper masculinity comes
from. And that's the thing, once I left high school, I'm like, you know what, I don't, you know what's funny, the thing about high school is you define your identity so much in those few years, when it's like those people aren't even in my life right now. I could do what, the only way they know what I'm doing is literally through Instagram these days. So it's like, if you're not in my life, I could be who I want to be, and I can be comfortable in who I am, right? So.
And I think honestly, the way I see it is, one day everyone's gonna have kids, or you know, these guys are probably gonna have daughters, and then they'll want to protect those girls from those kind of boys that used to be.
It's such a double standard.
Yeah. I know. I know all about double standards.
I know. Exactly. So that wraps it up for the show today. So I'm going to leave links to everything that Manvir is doing in the show notes, in the descriptions. So if you want to check out what she has going, personal, all that kind of stuff. But before we go, I like to give my guests a word of encouragement. Not that, you know, you fish for it, but like, you're hardworking. Like sometimes you don't, I'm pretty sure you're like that overdrive we talked about. Sometimes we hear stuff and we kind of just let it go over our head. But I just want you to sit back and just hear what I got to say. And exactly what I just said, I think I literally admire and respect your ability to juggle all of these things. Because I mean, obviously, you know, I see you at work once in a while, but I don't really see you all the time. But and the funny thing is, like, in your prelim, you talked about, you know, I was so fear I was a perfectionist because I'm Manvir, but it's like I can't equate like mess ups or failure with you, because you're just so like so on point. Like I see, like when I see you at work, like I couldn't tell if you were stressed, because you don't even show it on your face. Like you're able to do that, and it doesn't mean that you're not feeling stuff inside, but you keep your shit together to do what you got to do. So I really admire that. And you're just you're like a living, walking example, not only to females, not only to youth, but even to adults. So part of your goal is really messaging to adults and females too, right? So young females too. So I mean, like, you're setting an example of the blueprint of how to do it. You're not just saying, oh, I'm gonna announce from the hilltops, this is what I want to do. You're showing them living your life and having family members who support you, doing your thing. You could be successful. You took the risk. You made your nonprofit. Like, so I think that's so much more powerful than just saying a message and just being like, this is my opinion. But you're forming the blueprints for it. So at least when you go to people, you could be like, well, no, I didn't always have it all together. I didn't always have this nice house, this nice car, all that kind of stuff. I worked for that. You know, I struggled. I failed, right? So you're setting examples by what you do. I honor you for taking on such a pervasive issue in your culture, because a lot of people aren't doing that. And like I said, a lot of people are too fearful of doing that. But it takes a lot of strength to rewrite old ways of thinking. So I commend you for that. I see a passion in you that I don't see in some people who work with youth. Like a lot of people, and I can say this as a youth worker myself, so you can kind of get into a rhythm, into a repetitiveness where it's like client, stats, all that kind of stuff, you know, trying to impress, you know, higher ups or trying to impress organizations. But it's like every time I go see you, like, and I see you sometimes with those Syrian kids, it's like you have like such an energy and just such a vibe to you that I'm like, I could never tell that you're like doing all these things on the side, or I can never tell that you're going through something. So I think even in your work, it's not just money for you, it's such a mission. And I see that you're always on a mission, like on your 9 to 5. And lastly, one thing that I really like about you, and we talked a bit about this kind of off camera, is like, you're not someone who's like, oh, look at me and I have this many followers. And like, I checked your IG, you don't even post anything about like really what you're doing. Like you have a separate page for that. But even on your page, like one thing I love that you're doing is I think it's the Women of the Week. Right? And like, I barely see stuff on you, even on your own nonprofit. Like I have to be honest, like, not that I'm an entirely selfish person, but one thing I like to do is I like to post what I'm doing in the community. You don't do that. And I think that's so humble in today's society, where like everyone has an Instagram account and it's like, look what I'm doing, look who I just donated to this
Yeah.
organization, but your actions are speaking louder than your posts, right?
It's not
So
about me.
yeah, I really respect that. So
Thank you.
I just wanted to sincerely thank you for being here today.
Thank you for
And
having me.
honestly, like what I was saying before off camera, like you being on here is such a blessing to the show because you're offering differing perspectives. You're like elevating my reach because like I know how many people are going to check this out just because you're on here. So I really wanted to thank you for being on the show today, and looking forward to even doing a follow-up. I'm looking at doing panel episodes in the future, so
Okay.
definitely keep you in
Thank
mind.
you for having
Yeah.
me. I'm so honored that you thought I was worthy to come on this.
Oh, come on. No, like, you know, when I made the show, I put a bunch of people who I definitely want to reach out, and like I already put your name down.
Thank
And then
you.
I was telling my mom, and she's like, "Did you put Manvir on there?" And I'm like, "Yeah, I did. Don't worry." But yeah, so Manvir, thanks for being on the show
Thank
today.
you so much, Matt.
Appreciate
Thanks.
it.